Well, welcome, Mary Love. This is an exciting thing. You're my first interview for the relaunching of our book, The Art of Connecting with Nature.
Yay.
And we're going to be launching it back out. It'll be on Amazon in ebook form at a discounted price of 99 cents starting on June 1st through the 7th, and then go back to its normal price of $6.99 starting on June 1st. Also, you should be able to get a copy of the paperback here. I'm still in the revision mode with that, but it'll be close to that. So this has been a great journey. We actually started this or did this 5 years ago, our first launch, and a lot has changed during that time, Mary. And so we're doing this to kind of just check in with each other, see how we are. It gives me an opportunity to see, which I love seeing you. I kind of follow you on the Facebook with your grandchildren, especially.
Yeah, we don't miss a beat.
Right, and you get to see us with our grandchildren and doing our stuff too, which is kind of exciting to share that joy. Such an amazing gift with that. So, and I'm anxious to hear more about all the explorations and what you're doing at your property in Hawaii, since that's what your story is. You're connecting with Madame Pele, which is the goddess of the Hawaiian Islands there, and she watches over that. And I love your story, your chapter in our book. I'm gonna have to see what chapter it was here. Should have known that ahead of time there. So that is chapter 18, A Personal Journey with Madame Pele.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's been quite the last 5 years. So I'm curious for you, what has changed kind of for you as far as your ability to connect with nature, kind of what's going on with you? What have you done? I've seen a lot of work on your property and stuff. I'm curious if that's helping you do that. And where's your, again, this interview process gives us some opportunity to really find out more deeply who we are, who the authors are, in a more personal way than the 4 or 5 pages that we wrote in the book and that were edited in one way or another. So I'm curious, what's changed in your world here in the last 5 years since we launched this, Mary?
Well, as it turned out, I wrote that chapter about a fairly epic lava flow of 2014. When I first moved from Oahu to the Big Island of Hawaii. And it was very life impacting. My short chapter, explains that journey. However, it turns out that was just the precursor. That was just the fire drill, as it were, as Pele might say,
right.
I'm coming. So it turns out, and we're doing this interview right now in 2021, but as it turns out, 2018, it was beyond, it was, I think, a 200-year cycle of the volcano of Kilauea here that it's just several miles. I can see different vents from my home. So that started, we had a lot of earthquakes going on the first week of May of 2018. And then the ground just started opening up and lava just started coming out through an entire fissure rift. It's called the Southeast Rift Zone of Kilauea. And I live between the rift zone and the ocean and downhill. It's
so not a good thing, in other words.
Right.
Not the best of places to be.
It's just a thing. I try not to ascribe good and bad. It's
right, true.
Here's where I happen to be. And I chose to live on the side of the most active volcano on Earth. So I wasn't surprised. I didn't think I would see anything like that in my lifetime, but that involved having to evacuate my home for a period of 5 months. Tremendous property damage. Many friends and many community members, maybe 1,000 people lost their homes as the main fissures, I think there were 22 of them along this several mile long rift zone. And they were fountaining and oozing and exploding at all different ways. The most active one, it's about 3 miles from my backyard as the crow flies. And so it was like, I don't know, I would suppose being in Vietnam or, some hugely active war zone where the skies were orange all night long for months. And And I did have to leave my home because of the sulfuric oxide, a very acidic air that it won't necessarily kill you, but it's extremely irritating to lungs and eyes and all of that, with unknown health detriment. So moved to this little village of Hilo, Hawaii, about an hour away from here. And it was just a time of coming together for community. I mean, the most beautiful, oh, it still touches my heart, the most beautiful aloha. I mean, people living in, we have a community center, and I think at one point 1,000 people were living there, or in tents all the way around it. And the dinners, 3 meals a day, came from all these many sources, were cooked, delivered to people who were homeless. And that went on for months and months after this epic lava flow. But I would say the impact of it was before, even though I've had always a very spiritual connection with nature, from the time I was very little girl till here, I actually, moving over here, first I was in Iowa for about 20 years, then I was on Oahu about 20 years, and I've been here about 20 years. So added up, I am about what we call kupuna, senior citizen per se in Hawaii.
What?
Absolutely.
The graying of my beard is telltale as well.
I noticed. Indeed, I did. It looks great on you.
Well, thank you.
But I heard myself, I bought a great house over here. It's very affordable in this area, probably because of the volcano.
Right.
It's my best guess. But it's a more rural island. We just don't have the infrastructure, jobs, and population of the other islands. There's less than 200,000 people on this entire island. So think about it like a small town over a very large geographic area.
Yeah.
But people would say, so Mary Love, like, why'd you move over here? What are you doing? And this is before the lava flow, okay? I heard myself saying things like, well, this is my retirement planning. I'm semi-retired. I have this little Ohana cottage. I plan to do vacation rental. It just all makes sense. I love the people, blah, 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 blah. And that was this logical, intellectual little story that I would tell people at dinner parties, or I met somebody new or whatever. Oh, neighbor, who are you? And after 2 lava flows, a couple of hurricanes.
A potential missile strike from North Korea,
that
right?
too.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that was just one Sunday morning. That was like nothing. The pandemic, nothing. Piece of cake. But after that very humbling experience of even saying, I don't think I want to go back to my home. Like, I think I'm done there. I'm going to work something else. I'll fix up the house from the damage. It's mostly corrosive and electrical damage. I'll sell that house. I'll buy it somewhere else here on this island, but I don't think I want to be there anymore. But I came back home, fell in love with it, have just continued to work on my property. And now when somebody says, oh, so Mary Love, who are you and what are you doing here? And I say, you know what? The only thing I know is I'm here to serve for as long as I'm allowed to live here. And when that time ends, I'll have nothing but gratitude for being here. And I'll move down the road or up the hill or the mountain or be homeless on a beach or whatever. But so you see that very different intellectual, worldly, I get this figured out economically. I know how I can retire to, I don't know anything. I'm just here to serve, and I hope we can sing and dance as we do that.
Right. So that's true wisdom coming in there, right? The statement of I don't know anything. So what piqued my interest about what you shared there, Mary, is that you said when you came back after the second lava flow there in 2018 that you fell in love with your home, which is interesting. I would think you would fall in love with it when you first got it, and that was because it was providing income and it was a great place. But to hear you say I'm curious about that. What does that mean by falling in love with your home? I'm curious how that unfolds.
I guess that would be seeing it with new eyes. I always loved the actual home, the property, the neighborhood, the coastal line I'm along. I mean, it's epic. Half a mile down the road, I can set up my little chair and watch the whales go by in the winter, blowing, and here's mama whale, and then psh, psh, little tiny baby whale going behind her, and it's awesome. It's like a sports show, where neighbors are there and we're all like, yay, did you see that one? Yay. It's so beautiful, but it's just the landscape. There's no screen, there's no movie, it's real life. But I would say when I came back after that very humbling experience, I mean, I have friends that lost everything and did not have insurance. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean just a little modest home. I mean, many acres of rich agricultural land, professional businesses like chiropractors and potters and artists, and they lost everything, their entire lifetime, right down to the pictures and every sentimental thing and furniture in your home. I mean, so I felt gratitude and a little bit of survivor syndrome for coming home. Like, well, my home was spared. Yeah, it had a bunch of damage, but I could make it livable. And then we lost some really epic water entries, some amazing tide pool areas, geothermal warmed hot ponds. They're just postcard gorgeous, free, accessible at all times. And I'm a water person. Right. I'm a Gemini, I'm an air sign. So it all kind of comes into balance. And then you add all this fire in there, my relationship with fire, so all the elementals are converging. But when I came home, it was like, now I only have one beach access, beautiful coastline, but it's very cliffy where lava in over the hundreds of years just kind of drops into the sea, and it's rough waters. It's not the best for swimming. And we don't even have access and entry except save for this one little beach now. So,
is that why you built the? I'm sorry. I'm going to say, is that why you built the pool on your property?
Yes, that's where I was headed with this. First, I was in process, and I completed a 47-foot labyrinth, walking meditation labyrinth. So that's here on my property. And then I had this bit of land up near the top of my property. It's not a huge property at all, but then I was thinking, well, maybe I'll put like another little tiny home or cottage, or I had a notion to put a train caboose up there for a while. And then after losing water access, I had a natural pond built. I designed it in my mind. I hired this local group. I had 4 contractors tell me it couldn't be done or it would be very expensive because I live on lava. I live on a 1955 lava flow. I have this much dirt. So the soil and earth is tiny, manini, we say. So you have to bring in topsoil and do all this stuff, and drilling into it and digging into that. There's some blue rock, which is very, very hard volcanic rock. And they said, no, it just can't happen. It just can't happen. And I kept walking a big oval up there. I didn't have dowsing rods or any tools per se, other than my body, but I kind of got the ley lines of it. And then I finally found somebody who would excavate it for a reasonable price. So we did that with this huge jackhammer. He operated it from a vehicle. It's not a little handheld. I mean, it's huge kind of thing that was explosive, to create the puka, or the hole of the pond. And then hired this team of locals that came in and put a liner and the rocks that came out of the ground all the way around it, designed a waterfall. And it's not huge. It's like 15 by 30, and it's not quite 5 foot deep at one end. But, you know, it's enough to jump into, and my grandchildren, my family, my friends, we can do women's work in there, Watsu. The kids play all kinds of games. You can float around, you know, pretend you're in a hotel. But it's better than all of that.
Right.
And quite private and sweet. So yeah, I mean, I never imagined I would do these offerings that have spiritual value and healing value, healing to my community, to myself. And it's been a process. It turned me inside out. I was very shook up for about a year, emerged on the other side like a butterfly, and then the pandemic hit. And that's when I came up with the pool idea, because I was stuck at home. I wasn't working. I had some money set aside for travel that I wasn't going to do. And I said, I think I'll dig a hole in the ground.
That's a good thing.
And it worked out well.
That's a great story, Mary. So it's become a community pool. And certainly I know that I've seen your grandchildren, pictures of them and your kids in there as well. So that's a nice,
Fabulous.
fabulous thing with that. So
yeah.
I'm going to pick up where you had talked about your connection with the elements, that you've got all the elements right there. I'm curious if your relationship with the elements, how they've changed over time being there on the island, because some of them, like when Madame Pele comes front and present, you can't ignore her, right? So I'm curious how those relationships with the elements have changed and how it's kind of changed you in that process as well.
That's a great question, Mark. I think I've always had very tight relationship and awareness of all the elementals, but of them, it was fire that was kind of deeply scary to me. You know, the whole adage of don't play with fire and everything, and I've played with fire in sacred fire circles for decades, and I love it. I'm mesmerized. But I think this lava flow changed that from a like potential danger, which it is. I mean, all the elements can be dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they can overwhelm us at any time they want to. But I think that was my tentative relationship that got healed. And now I feel I really resonate with one of the civil defense meetings. At one time, there was a little old lady, Hawaiian woman, that you get to come up to the microphone and ask her a question. And the Hawaii Volcano Observatory scientist might answer it, or civil defense for public safety, or the mayor of Hawaii was there if it was social services. And, so that was the political part of that. And this lady, I can't remember her name. I don't know her personally. And she came up to the microphone, but this just resonated in me and continues to echo. She said, no matter if you were born here and you grow up here, or you just got here yesterday, you knew there was a volcano right there. You knew that. You came here on purpose. And when I hear that the goddess is going to visit me, just like my favorite auntie, Pele's on her way. What do? Do I run around and scream and yell and move my things out? No, I clean up. I clean myself. I clean my property. I get my house ready. I set out offerings. And I sit in thankfulness, and I hope that she would visit me. And I'm like, it just landed on me deeply. That's what you do. You honor the elements and all the powers and the source behind that. And when you need to step out of the way, that's just fine. But it's not about us. It's not about me. It's not about my retirement plan. It's not about my family, my grandchildren, how long I'll live, the quality of my life. Can I afford it? Can't I afford it? Oh, no, that's nothing. That's nothing. It is an honor to be here. And if any of the gods and goddesses or elements in any form want to visit me, what I want to do is be the one opening my door and saying, "Oh, you're here."
Wow, what a powerful statement. An
Right?
amazingly different way than our Western, how we're trained in our Western world, right? It's
Right.
about what we have, and it's about our stuff, and it's about the money and the things. And this is about the relationship, and the stuff is totally, it's something we're borrowing, right? And a lot of indigenous peoples talk about this, even our Native Americans here from the United States,
Absolutely.
North America is like when the Europeans came over and started talking about owning land, it was like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. And so
Right.
yeah, of course, yeah, sure. You might as well own the air and everything else too. You can't do that. So
Right.
that it's such a different frame of being so connected and so in flow, really in flow with nature, that you're part of it and you're welcoming anything that comes with grace and with open heart and going, we're just here, we're just borrowing this place temporarily. It's not
Right.
mine.
Stewards.
It was never mine, right? We're stewards
Right.
of this.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get to be here for as long as I'm allowed to be, and that's got to be good enough. And I've already got 20 years in this magical place, and more than 20 years in magical Colorado, and
Right.
having grown up in the Midwest. I mean, what do I have to complain about?
I'm with you. I'm with you there. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's just fascinating. So I love that. So talking about the Midwest, because we both grew up in Iowa. So
Right?
I'm curious, going back to the young Mary, what is like the earliest thing that you can remember as far as nature and connecting with it and finding a real like relationship to it? Do you have a memory of that?
Well, my grandpa Love had a farm. I lived in the city, but was frequently on the farm. So the cycles of life of the cows and the pigs and, all the farmyard and even the fields, even the crops, the medicine wheel throughout the year, seeing the harvest, and go through the winter. My grandmother having all the canned foods, lined up in the cellar, and wood for the stove, and all of that to make it through the winter, and then the spring, and just all of that was definitely a part of my life, even though I wasn't living it on a daily basis. And those were the days, my friend. I mean, we were outside, right? I don't know about you, but we didn't get kicked out of the house. We just left and cruised, and we were, we made playhouses under weeping willow trees and played our games in the lilac bushes, and I was always thinking I was seeing fairies around at every corner, those little streaks of light, and
I still think that, Mary.
Yes.
I still believe that.
And they're the guardians of the earth and the plants and nature and everything. And and they're just a different race than us, but we're, I've always been very aware of all of that from a young age and enjoyed it. And we didn't even have that much television, but we certainly didn't have the internet and devices and all those incredible distractions that we have now, that people try to have self-discipline and get into nature. And it is my instinct. Like if I get a little anxiety, like when COVID first popped up and we didn't know, is it on every single surface? Is it safe to go to the grocery store to pump gas? And, we were all kind of freaked out.
Right.
I'll just voice us as a collective society that nobody knew what was going on. It was a little scary. And I don't have much stress or anxiety in life these days. I turned 65 in a couple of weeks here, and there's just not that much worried about, or that I want to put the energy into fussing about. But COVID was one of them, that popped up, and I found I didn't even have to think about it. My natural inclination was to get outside in my gardens, on my property, digging, actually touching, not a shovel. I have to pull the weeds by hand. sweat, rinse off, repeat, and a little bit of that every day, as little as 30 to 60 minutes would just reset and ground me. And I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. We got this. We're going to do this. As I was choosing the bubble of people that I could be with and everything, it's like, as long as I can go out and play in the dirt, I'm going to be okay. And plus, we had the beauty of our year-round weather, and it was still fine to hike and go to beaches and stand up paddle and snorkel in isolation from other groups. But my little family, a couple of my friends, we could do that with relative ease here rather than, the big metro areas that were so affected. So, getting in nature is always my medicine.
I am so with you there. I spent, the first several months of COVID at home as well, working, but I spent a ton of time out in my yard because we, like you said, you don't go anywhere, didn't go much places other than to get food and so forth. But other than that, pretty much staying at home, but getting it out. I created a water feature, speaking of water, created a waterfall kind of feature in my yard, did a bunch of other work there, and was always kind of, that is truly, like you said, in fact, I have to get out at least a couple times a week for hikes and stuff because I can start feeling like I get almost like an anxiety or something that builds up in me. It's like, get out there. You got to get it. It's like, got it. I know what's going on.
Right.
Get out there and just kind of connect in and do that. And it's interesting because we talk about this in the book, that there's a really big difference between going in nature, because I had this conversation with a men's group the other day because we were talking about Richard Louv and The Last Child in the Wood and the nature deficit disorder, and we were talking about you and I growing up in the rural communities and so forth, and that that this nature deficit disorder of not having a connection with nature with these younger generations. They didn't grow up, they weren't kicked out of the house, so they didn't learn to connect in there and dream and do those things. And the guy said, one of the men in my men's group said, well, I don't think that's true, that just going out in nature is the important thing, because I know several farmers and ranchers and so forth that burn stuff out here and throw chemicals over here and do this and do that. It's like, oh, you're absolutely right. It's not just physically being in it, it's being connected in it, hence our book and stuff, because there's a lot of people that in Colorado, as you know, that got miles of trails around us here right in Colorado Springs. And so many people have earphones on or music playing or something, or they're going out there and their whole time they're thinking through something in their head and they have no idea of what's going on in them. They're not present to the magic of the moment and to the signals of nature and to the really, like you were talking, those very subtle nuances that are kind of going, look over here, come this way, go over here, not this way this time, go over here. And so there's that really big difference of being in nature, camping, hiking, whatever, or being a part of nature, being part with nature, connecting in with it. So, and and that really just rings so true. I love what we've talked about, kind of, we named the book The Art of Connecting with Nature. And I really experience you, Mary, as being you're just such a beautiful example of artistic workings and everything that I see in your world with stuff. And I see this, I'm curious how you artistically connect in nature with things, or how that kind of plays out in your world as well, because I've always seen you as being super artistic, and you just have, like you said, you have this knack of, I'm going to build this pool here, I'm going to sense where it has to go. I'm just kind of curious how those two things, nature and art, have played together in your world.
Well, it's funny because over the years, like when I meet someone, you know how people say, oh, what do you do? Mm-hmm. Like they want to know your profession or what. Oh, what do you do? And I very often say, oh, I'm an artist. And I've sold one painting in my entire life, that was a part of a charity thing where I painted and it sold, but I'm not an artist putting things up for sale and in galleries and, all of that. It's really my relationship with nature for the most part, and that reflection. And I say all of life is art. How we prepare a meal and eat it, how we greet one another, my home, my property, how I move about the world. That's all art, all everything. Shopping in a grocery store, there's an art to it. You know, I'm going down here and thinking about nourishment and creation and thankfulness, and it's all art. Everything is. And the times that I fall out of that mentality and I'm not present with that, that's when I get kind of screwed up with a little anxiety, or I imagine that I've been wronged by somebody or some system, or, you know, I make up some story. And then as soon as I get back out there, and it's like, this whole world is art. It's the source is art. And I'm a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not creating it. I, like you said, interacting with nature. And it's the mindset that we do that. And here in Hawaii, we call it being pono, which roughly translates into righteousness, but it's to be righteous in how you move through the world. And malama aina is to care for the earth. So not just my property. I mean, any beach, anywhere I go, to pick up litter. When I'm out on my stand-up paddleboard, I pick up litter out of the ocean, water bottles and plastic bags, and I stick them into my bathing suit and bring them back. I'll come with trash coming out. I don't want people think I am some kind of trash goddess of this thing.
It's the trash goddess. Look at her out there. That's amazing.
But that's being pono. That's to malama, the elements. So yeah, good point.
Oh, I love that. I really do. That's very sweet with that. And I know one of the things that I mean, listening to your story about being there on the Big Island, where maybe what, like you said, what moved you there was the image of financial, being able to financially be well off with this, being able to Airbnb out my stuff so I can kind of, like you said, quasi-retire with that. It was a different thing. But I've heard, just talking with you at different times and listening to your stories and watching what you're posting on social media and so forth, it's become, and the story that you wrote in here, you know, in chapter 18, that the real richness that it seems like you found is community, and that supporting each other. And I mean, that's probably one of the biggest gifts that maybe Pele has given everybody, right? Is the remembering to take care of each other, remembering what's really important, right? It's not about the stuff, it's about each other and our hearts and our souls. And I remember you writing in one of the things you said in your story here is that it's almost like Madame Pele was giving, kind of cleaning house a little bit, going, okay, are you really here because you want to be here and you belong here, or are you here for other reasons? And I'm going to clear out those people that aren't supposed to be here, and the door is open for those whose hearts are here and who are here for the right reasons. And it was like, oh, that's
he does that regularly.
Yeah.
Yes. And whoever need not be here, they know, they split, they're gone.
Yeah.
But this is a very unique community in Lower Puna of Big Island of Hawaii, where there's a circus intentional community right around the block from me, the magical community, spiritual, kirtan. I mean, Sufi, there's so much juiciness and richness here that when I was coming over for house buying trips, and I would look at 10 or 12 houses in a day and then spend the rest of the day in the community, whatever. I remember my realtor took me to this very unique farmer's market here with live music and kids on stilts and jugglers and fire spinners. And I walked in and I said, oh, these are my people.
Right? That's great.
Yeah.
That is great.
So I knew that I would do well here, and it's marvelous. I mean, I went away this morning to Hilo. It's an hour's drive away. I came back. There's 3 papayas, an avocado, and some kind of kimchi or something left on my doorstep. I have no idea which neighbor or friend dropped by and I wasn't home. And it's a place where we don't lock our doors, and there's plenty for all. And yeah, we're a little bit in each other's business.
That tends to happen.
I don't know if they're doing that to code. What do you think? but
Right.
it's all worth it. All the community is deep and rich.
That's awesome. And it's just been such a pleasure watching kind of how things have unfolded for you there and the magic that you're putting into everything.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you so much for taking time for meeting with me on this. I'm excited about our book and to get people to know a little bit more about you and me and kind of what we're up to and you know why it's important for us to do this work, because I really do believe that it's about connecting in nature. And we all the art piece for me is that there is no one right way of doing it. You can connect with nature in so many different ways, and that's the artistic piece. It's like an infinite amount of pathways, and we're all learning similar things yet in bit different ways, and that's the beauty, I think, of the book. Again, thank you so much for being one of the authors, the co-authors with this. I love what you've offered and given, and I'm excited to relaunch this. 5 years seems like a good time to do something different and to kind of revive it and to let it go back out into the world and make a difference and touch other people's lives. So my friend, it has been rich and beautiful and wonderful as always. I'm connecting with you and seeing your wonderful spirit and self there, and look forward to us connecting somewhere soon. We'll have to come over and see you soon down the road. I know we weren't able to connect. We weren't able to connect there when we were out in Maui there a few months back, but we'll make it happen soon.
Yes, do. Much love and aloha to you and your entire family. I miss you and I love you.
Aloha.